They thought permission was required. For 2 centuries, the Vrax Dominion had built an empire on that assumption. Request authorization. Wait for committee review. Follow proper channels. Respect the process. The galaxy had learned to wait until the humans arrived, and by the time High Director Kavros Thane realized they had never asked for permission at all, 47 sectors had already fallen. Not through conquest, through initiative. The sensor alert chimed 3 times across the Vrax Dominion Council chamber, each tone sharper than the last. Kavros straightened in his seat, carved from crystalline stone that had witnessed 4 centuries of deliberation. His fingers, long and weathered, pressed against the armrest. The chamber around him held the weight of history. Every surface polished to mirror smoothness. Every angle calculated for acoustics. Every tradition preserved. Protocol demanded silence during review sessions. Protocol demanded order. Kavros had built his life on protocol. Explain, he said. His voice carried the authority of 35 years in service. Not loud, not harsh, simply absolute. Junior analyst Kira Venn approached the central display. Young, 28 perhaps, brilliant certainly, but still learning the value of patience. Her movements betrayed nervous energy despite years of training under Kavros himself. High Director, she began, her sensory stalks flickering with agitation. We have detected unauthorized vessels in Sector 447. Multiple contacts. Human origin confirmed. The word rippled through the assembled council like a stone dropped in still water. Human. Kavros felt his primary eyes narrow. The newcomers, the species that had stumbled into faster-than-light travel barely 3 decades ago. The ones who submitted paperwork like children scrawling on walls, incomplete forms, missing appendices, no understanding of proper channels. Unauthorized Counselor Drex leaned forward, his ceremonial robes rustling. 67 years of service made his voice granite. Impossible. We have received no clearance requests for Sector 447 in the current administrative cycle. Kira tapped her data tablet. Records materialized in the air above the council floor, holographic and precise. Respectfully, Counselor, we received a formal survey notification from the Human Stellar Authority 6 months ago. Request number 4471-Alpha. It remains in preliminary review pending completion of Forms 7G through 14M, as well as the standard impact assessments. 6 months. Pending, as it should be. Kavros gestured, and the bureaucratic flowchart materialized beside Kira's projection. A thing of beauty, really. 200 years of refinement, every box connected to 3 others, every approval contingent on 7 subcommittees, every timeline calculated to prevent hasty decisions. Hasty decisions killed millions. He knew this. He had witnessed it as a child. Sector 447 falls within the disputed territories. Kavros said, his voice measured. Any authorization requires full environmental studies, cultural impact reviews, and approval of no fewer than 7 subcommittees. The process is clearly defined. He paused, letting the chamber absorb his certainty. It takes time. It takes patience. Kira's expression shifted. Something in her eyes that Kavros recognized. The look of someone about to deliver news that would complicate everything. Which, she said quietly, the humans appear to lack. The tactical display shifted. Real-time sensor data from the border monitoring stations flooded the screens. 3 distinct contacts, each broadcasting human identification codes. They moved with purpose through the asteroid fields and gas clouds of Sector 447. Their trajectories suggested systematic survey patterns, active operations, without approval. Kavros felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, not exactly. More like the recognition of a pattern breaking, a rule violated, an assumption challenged. They are operating without authorization, he said. The words tasted wrong in his mouth. It appears so, High Director. How many vessels? 3 confirmed, possibly 4. The sensor returns are inconsistent in that region. Interference from the magnetar. 3 ships. The humans sent 3 ships into disputed space and expected what? That the Dominion would simply overlook this breach of protocol, ignore centuries of carefully established channels. Kavros stood. His considerable height made the gesture impressive, made it a statement. We have spent 2 centuries establishing proper channels for resource allocation in the contested regions, he said to the assembled council. His voice carried the weight of institutional memory. The Krell respect these channels. The Morvani respect these channels. Even the Thalesian Compact, with all their posturing, respects these channels. He let the silence hang. The humans are new to galactic society, another council member interjected. Perhaps they misunderstand the process. Misunderstand. Cavros considered this. It was possible. Humans had demonstrated technological capability, certainly. Their FTL drives were crude but functional. Their communications adequate if inelegant. But their understanding of proper galactic governance remained questionable at best. They sent requests without appropriate supplementary documentation. They asked direct questions instead of following proper inquiry protocols. They seemed almost willfully ignorant of the careful hierarchies that kept galactic civilization stable, or perhaps they simply did not care. Pull their initial request, Cavros ordered. Kira complied. The human petition materialized in holographic form, floating in the air before the council. Cavros read it. His disbelief grew with each line. 3 pages. The entire document was 3 pages. A proper resource survey request to the Vrax Dominion required a minimum of 47 pages of documentation, plus appendices, plus environmental impact statements, plus cultural sensitivity reviews. The humans had submitted what amounted to a sketch, a rough outline, an insult to centuries of refined bureaucratic practice. They list their survey objectives, Cavros said slowly, his voice tight. Their estimated timeline, 30 days. How absurd. And their projected resource extraction rates. He scrolled through the sparse document. Nothing about environmental compensation frameworks, nothing about cultural sensitivity reviews, nothing about how their presence might impact existing claimants in adjacent sectors. Kira highlighted a single line of text. They included this statement. High Director, quote, "We will operate with full respect for all galactic species and regulations." A platitude, words without substance. They did not even specify which regulations they intended to respect, which frameworks they would follow, which oversight bodies they would report to. Cavros felt his irritation crystallizing into something harder, something more fundamental. The humans were either incompetent or arrogant, perhaps both. They had submitted an inadequate request, received no approval, and now proceeded as though permission were a formality rather than a prerequisite. Dispatch a patrol fleet, Cavros said. Border Group Theta 4. Have them intercept the human vessels and escort them out of Sector 447. Make it clear that operations in disputed space require proper authorization through proper channels. And if they refuse to leave, Kira asked. The question hung in the air. Cavros settled back into his seat, his confidence restored. They will not refuse, he said. They are human, new to the galaxy. Once they understand their error, they will withdraw. Then we can expedite their request, move it to the front of the queue, reduce the review period to 8 months instead of the standard 12. A gesture of goodwill, a teaching moment. The council murmured approval. This was how things worked, how order was maintained. Species that wished to operate in galactic space learned to respect the systems that governed it. The humans would learn. Everyone learned eventually. Kira hesitated. Her fingers moved across her tablet, pulling up additional data. One more thing, High Director, she said. Her voice carried a note that made Cavros pause. The sensor station reports that the human vessels are not using standard navigation beacons. They are running with minimal emission signatures. Stealth approach. How typical. They knew they were in violation. They knew they were operating without authorization. So they tried to hide. But something in Kira's expression made Cavros pause. What are you not telling us, Analyst? Kira's sensory stalks flattened against her skull. A tell. She was uncomfortable with what came next. It is probably nothing, High Director, but Commander San at the monitoring station noted that the human vessels appeared on sensors very suddenly. One moment empty space. The next moment, 3 confirmed contacts. She pulled up the timestamp data. The logs suggest they may have been in the sector for some time before detection. The council chamber fell silent. Cold silence. The kind that preceded revelations no one wanted to hear. How long? Cavros asked. His voice remained steady, but something in his chest tightened. Difficult to say with certainty. The magnetar interference makes retroactive analysis challenging, but based on the degradation patterns of their emission signatures, Kira met his eyes. Days, High Director. Possibly weeks. Weeks. Operating in Dominion-monitored space for weeks without detection. That suggested capabilities beyond what the humans had demonstrated in their initial contact with galactic civilization. It suggested technology, planning, intent. It suggested they knew exactly what they were doing. Send Border Group Theta 4, Cavros repeated. His voice remained even, but he gripped the armrest tighter. And have them run full spectrum scans when they arrive. I want to know exactly what the humans are doing in a Sector 447 and how long they have really been there. Kira bowed and departed to relay the orders. Kavros stared at the display. Those three human contacts moved with such purpose, such confidence, as if they belonged there, as if they had never doubted their right to be there, as if they had never been waiting for permission at all. The patrol fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sector 447, 6 vessels in standard interdiction formation, 4 corvettes, 2 frigates, more than enough to deal with 3 human survey ships. Commander Revik Dane studied the tactical display from his command chair. 47 years old, 23 years in service. He had run border interdictions 100 times before. This one should be simple. Clean, professional. All vessels report ready status, his communications officer announced. Weapons powered down, shields at standby, diplomatic posture maintained. Good. Dane nodded his approval. They were here to escort, not engage. The humans had made a procedural error. The Dominion would correct it. Simple bureaucratic housekeeping. But even as he thought this, something felt wrong. The sensor returns were unclear. The 3 human vessels that had been clearly visible from the monitoring station now appeared as flickering ghosts on his screens. Their positions shifted, wavered, sometimes disappearing entirely before reappearing kilometers away. Sensor malfunction, Dane asked. His tactical officer, a young officer named Kelris, shook her head. No, sir. We are getting interference from the Magnetar, but our systems are operating within normal parameters. It is the human vessels themselves. They are generating some kind of emission scatter. It makes them difficult to track. Dane felt his jaw tighten. They are deliberately masking their signatures. It would appear so, sir. During a supposed survey operation, survey vessels operated with full transponders active, maximum visibility to avoid accidents. You did not skulk through space unless you had something to hide. Transmit on all frequencies, Dane ordered. Standard Dominion greeting and interdiction notice. The communications array pulsed. Seconds passed, then minutes. No response. Try again, Dane said, his patience thinning. Include a warning. Unauthorized operations in disputed space constitute a violation of Dominion oversight protocols. They are required to acknowledge. Another transmission, another silence. Kelris looked up from her station. Confusion evident in her posture. Sir, they are definitely receiving. I am detecting receptor activation on their hulls. They are just not responding. Not responding, or choosing not to respond. The distinction mattered. Dane felt heat rise in his chest. Ignoring a Dominion patrol fleet, the audacity alone was staggering. He pulled up the last known positions of the human vessels and plotted an intercept course. Take us in, formation Theta 7. We will position ourselves directly in their path. Let us see them ignore 6 Dominion warships at close range. The fleet moved forward. They slid through the asteroid field with the confidence of vessels that had patrolled these borders for decades. Sector 447 was familiar territory. Mapped, categorized, every gravitational anomaly documented, every radiation pocket charted, which made what Kelris said next all the more disturbing. Sir, I am picking up additional contacts. Dane's attention snapped to the tactical display. Human signature matches. Yes, sir, 4 more vessels. No, wait. Her fingers flew across her console. 6 more. 8. Sir, they are everywhere. The display lit up like a festival celebration. Human vessels appeared throughout the sector, not just in the survey corridor they had requested, but scattered across dozens of cubic kilometers, some near asteroid clusters rich in rare metals, others positioned near the sector's few stable Lagrange points, still others drifting near the edges of the Magnetar's radiation belt. Deliberate placement, strategic positioning. This is not a survey operation, Dane said slowly. The words felt heavy in his mouth. This is an occupation, Kelris finished. Surveyed, we are now tracking 15 distinct human vessels. No, 17. The interference is still making accurate counts difficult, but there are at least that many. 17. Dane pulled up the timeline of human activity in Dominion space. First contact 32, standard months ago. First diplomatic exchanges 28 months ago. First resource request 6 months ago, all still pending review. They have only been in our space for less than 3 years, Dane said, his voice quiet. How did they establish this kind of presence without detection? His executive officer offered a suggestion. Maybe they did not, sir. Maybe the monitoring stations missed them. Human technology might have better stealth capabilities than we initially assessed. Or maybe? Kelris brought up a new scan. This one focused on structures rather than ships. Dane felt his blood chill. Stations. The humans had built stations. 3 confirmed orbital platforms, each positioned in tactically significant locations. One monitored the primary hyperspace corridor into the sector. Another overlooked the richest asteroid field. The third sat at the sector's gravitational center, a perfect position for coordination and control. How long have those been there? Dane demanded. Kelris ran the analysis. Construction materials, radiation signatures, thermal degradation patterns. She looked up, her expression grim. Minimum 3 months, sir, possibly longer. These are not temporary survey camps. These are permanent installations. 3 months, while the Dominion's bureaucracy ground through its careful processes. While the humans smiled and nodded and waited patiently for approval that might come in a year or two, except they had not been waiting at all. Get me a priority channel to High Director Thane, Dane ordered. He needs to know. Before Kelris could comply, new alarms screamed across the bridge. Sir, Kelris' voice cracked with alarm. New contacts, large ones, bearing 270 range 8,000 kilometers and closing. Dane spun toward the tactical display. 2 massive signatures had appeared on the edge of his sensors, far larger than any of the smaller human vessels, capital ships, cruiser class at minimum. Where did they come from? Dane asked. They were just there, sir. One moment, nothing. The next moment, full sensor return. They must have been running completely silent. One of the human vessels altered course, smaller, sleeker than the others. It moved toward Dane's fleet with clear purpose. A communication request lit up his console. Finally, this is Commander Revik Dane of the Vrax Dominion Border Fleet, he said, his voice tight. You are operating in disputed space without authorization. You are hereby ordered to Commander Dane. The voice that interrupted him was female, calm, speaking perfect Dominion standard with barely a trace of accent. This is Captain Lyra Wright of the Human Stellar Authority vessel Pathfinder. Thank you for your patrol presence in Sector 447. We appreciate the Dominion's attention to border security. Dane blinked. Appreciate, thank them for. As if this were a courtesy visit. As if they had any right to be here at all. You are in violation of, he began. We received your transmissions, Commander, Wright continued, her tone remaining pleasant but unyielding. We apologize for the delay in responding. Our communications team was coordinating with our research stations and needed to prioritize interfleet channels first. I trust you understand. Research stations, multiple. Dane felt his composure slipping. Captain Wright, you have no authorization for research stations. You have no authorization for any operations in this sector. Your request is still under review. There was a pause. When Wright spoke again, something in her tone had shifted, not hostile, but precise, as if she were explaining something very simple to someone who should have already understood. Commander, I believe there may be some confusion about our intentions. Our communication 6 months ago was not a request for authorization. It was a notification of intent, a courtesy informing the Dominion of our planned operations in Sector 447. A courtesy. Dane replayed her words in his mind. Notification, not a request. Correct, Wright said. We included details of our survey timeline, our research objectives, and our estimated resource extraction rates. We wanted the Dominion to be aware of our presence, to avoid any misunderstandings or accidents. Kelris frantically pulled up the original human transmission. Displayed it on a secondary screen. Dane read it again, this time with new eyes. The language was ambiguous. Intent to survey, planned operations. We will proceed. Nowhere did it explicitly say requesting permission. Nowhere did it ask for approval. The humans had never asked. They had simply told the Dominion what they were going to do. This is unacceptable, Dane said, fighting to keep his voice level. Sector 447 is disputed territory. The Dominion maintains administrative oversight. All operations require proper authorization through proper channels. This is galactic law. Is it? Wright asked. The question was not challenging, just curious. Commander, could you cite the specific treaty or accord that establishes Dominion administrative authority over unclaimed space? Unclaimed. This sector falls within Dominion monitoring range, Dane said. Oh, yes, but monitoring is not ownership. Sector 447 has no permanent population, no registered claims, no active resource extraction. According to Article 7 of the Galactic Commerce Protocols, unclaimed space is open to any species with the capability to utilize it. She knew, the humans knew galactic law, not just the broad strokes, the specific articles, the loopholes. the gaps between monitoring and control. You are playing semantic games, Dane said. We are operating within established legal frameworks, Wright replied. The Dominion has every right to monitor this sector. We have every right to operate in it. Neither right supersedes the other. You should have waited for our response to your notification. Why? The single word hung between them. Simple. Devastating. Because Dane said scrambling for solid ground, that is how things are done. There are processes, procedures, order. Commander, the Human Stellar Authority has been operating in Sector 447 for 3 months. We have established research infrastructure, completed preliminary surveys, identified several promising resource deposits. In that same time, we have received no communication from the Dominion, no acknowledgement of our notification, no objections to our presence, no counterclaims filed. Wright paused. We interpreted your silence as tacit acceptance. 3 months, not weeks, months. While High Director Thane and the Council debated proper form submissions and environmental review procedures, the humans had been here, building, surveying, establishing themselves. And now that the Dominion finally responded, the humans acted as if their presence was already legitimate, already established, already beyond question. How many vessels do you have in this sector? Dane asked, dreading the answer. Another pause. Including logistics, ships, supply runners, and research vessels, 43. 43. His sensors were tracking a fraction of them. The rest were too small to register clearly, too well shielded, or positioned in sensor blind spots the humans had somehow already identified and exploited. Captain Wright, Dane said carefully, I have 6 warships. You have 43 vessels, 3 stations, and what appears to be complete operational infrastructure. This was not a survey mission. This was colonization. Not colonization, Commander. Resource development. There is a significant difference. We are not establishing permanent population centers. We are extracting materials that would otherwise remain unused, conducting research that benefits scientific understanding, maintaining a presence in space that serves our strategic interests. She paused, just as the Dominion does in dozens of other sectors. She was right. The Dominion did exactly that, but they did it slowly, carefully, through proper channels and established procedures. They did not just arrive and build and act as if authority came from capability rather than permission. The High Director will not accept this, Dane said. Will he not? Wright's tone remained neutral, but Dane detected something beneath it, not quite amusement, more like patience with the inevitable. Commander, I have another vessel approaching your position, the HSAS Determination, commanded by Admiral Helena Morgrave. She would like to discuss the parameters of human operations in this region. Another contact appeared on Dane's screen. A cruiser, definitely. But as it drew closer, the size estimates kept revising upward. Not a cruiser, a battle cruiser, possibly a dreadnought. It dwarfed his entire patrol fleet combined. That is a warship, Kelris whispered. That is a statement, Dane corrected grimly. Wright's voice returned. The Admiral is authorized to negotiate terms of mutual operation in Sector 447. The Human Stellar Authority is prepared to share survey data, coordinate resource extraction schedules, and establish joint monitoring protocols with the Dominion. We prefer cooperation to conflict. And if we insist you leave, the pause was longer this time. When Wright spoke again, her voice carried a finality that made Dane's heart skip. Commander, we are already here. We have been here for months. We have infrastructure, operational capability, legal standing under galactic commerce law. The question is not whether we will leave. She let that sink in. The question is whether the Dominion wants to establish a functional working relationship with us or spend the next several years in legal and diplomatic disputes while we continue operating anyway. Dane stared at his tactical display. 43 human vessels, probably more he could not detect. 3 stations built in territory the Dominion had been monitoring for decades. And now, capital ships arriving. Not to ask permission, but to discuss terms. The humans had not taken initiative. They had taken control, and they had done it while the Dominion was still deciding whether to grant them permission to try. The emergency session of the Vrax Dominion Council convened within 2 hours. Kavros Thane stood before the central display, watching the updated sensor data from Sector 447. His face remained composed, but his hands gripped the edge of the console. 43 vessels, 3 stations, 2 capital ships, and those were only the contacts they could confirm. This is invasion, Counselor Drex declared, his voice booming across the chamber. Cloaked invasion, but invasion nonetheless. We must respond with force. Force, Kavros felt his sensory stalks twitch with agitation. Against what? He asked, his voice quiet. They have not fired a shot. They have not threatened anyone. They have simply built things without permission. They claim they do not need permission, another counselor interjected. Kavros pulled up the legal analysis his staff had frantically compiled. Article 7 of the Galactic Commerce Protocols. The humans were technically correct. Sector 447 had no registered claimants. The Dominion monitored it, patrolled it, maintained presence. But monitoring was not ownership. I have had our legal scholars review every treaty, every accord, every protocol we have cited for administrative authority in the disputed regions, Kavros said. He met the eyes of the council members. The foundations are less solid than we believed. The chamber fell silent. For 2 centuries, the Vrax Dominion had operated on an assumption that their bureaucratic oversight was itself a form of legitimate control, that their careful processes and review procedures granted them authority, that other species accepted this because they understood the value of order. But what if they had simply accepted it because they lacked the will to challenge it? The humans knew, Counselor Vex said slowly. They knew our authority was procedural rather than legal. That is why their notification was worded so carefully. They were not asking, they were informing. And we, Kavros added, his voice bitter, treated it like a request, logged it, filed it, began our standard review process. By the time we would have responded in 8 to 12 months, they planned to have complete operational control. Then they are strategists, Drex growled, which makes them dangerous. Or honest, another council member suggested. They told us what they intended. We chose not to listen. The display updated again. Dane had sent new data, structural scans of the human stations. Kavros studied them with the eye of someone who had spent decades analyzing installations. These were not simple research outposts. The architecture spoke of permanence, reinforced hulls, redundant power systems, defensive weapon emplacements, powered down, but present. They are building fortifications, Drex noted. For a sector they claimed to be peacefully surveying. No, Kavros said. The pieces were clicking together. Terrible clarity. For sectors plural, this is not about Sector 447. This is a test. They are establishing a model for how they will operate everywhere. He pulled up the map of disputed territories, dozens of sectors, all monitored by various regional powers, all technically unclaimed, all ripe for exactly this kind of initiative-based occupation. Contact the other regional powers, Kavros ordered. The Krell Hegemony, the Morvani Confederacy, the Thalesian Compact. See if they have received similar notifications from humanity. It took 30 minutes to compile the responses. When they arrived, Kavros felt something in his chest crack. 47 sectors. The humans had sent notifications to every regional power that maintained monitoring presence in disputed space. All worded identically. All sent 6 months ago. All interpreted as permission requests. None had been explicitly denied. They ceded the entire contested region, Kira breathed. While we were debating their paperwork, they were positioning themselves across dozens of sectors simultaneously. Kavros pulled up another file. Intelligence had flagged something. Over the past 2 years, the Dominion had received 17 requests for scientific data exchange from various human academic institutions. Routine requests, normal cooperation. The Dominion had granted most of them. Pure research, sensor calibration standards, navigation protocols, routine information sharing, except it had not been routine at all. Intelligence gathering, Kira said quietly. Sir, I am looking at the human station positions again. They are placed exactly in our sensor blind spots. Not approximately, exactly. They knew where we could not see. Kavros closed his eyes. The humans had not just arrived and hoped for the best. They had prepared. They had studied Dominion systems, learned patrol patterns, identified weaknesses. Every courtesy request for data, every seemingly innocent question about border monitoring procedures. It had all been reconnaissance, and the Dominion had answered every question, filed every data exchange request, followed every procedure. They used our own processes against us, Kavros said quietly. The council erupted in argument. Some demanded military response. Others called for legal action. Still others suggested immediate diplomatic recognition before the situation deteriorated further. But Kavros barely heard them. He stared at the map. 47 sectors, each with human operations, each established while bureaucracies deliberated, each a testament to initiative over permission. He thought of why he had built this system. 52 years ago, the Kelrath collapse. He had been 10 years old, watching the news vids with his father, bodies being pulled from the wreckage. 4 million dead because corporations had rushed expansion without proper oversight. His father had held him close. This is why we have rules, Kavros, because haste kills. Kavros had built his entire career on that lesson. 35 years of careful deliberation, of thorough review, of preventing catastrophe through patience. 0 disasters under his watch. 0. But also, what had Kira said her research station proposal? 5 years in review, still pending. Her career on hold while committees deliberated. How many innovations delayed? How many discoveries postponed? How many lives not saved because treatments waited in approval queues? Kavros pulled up his personal files. The comprehensive oversight protocols. His masterwork, adopted by 40 species over 30 years. The framework that had maintained peace through careful methodical expansion. And now humans had bypassed it entirely in 6 months. Not through violence, not through deception exactly, just through the simple act of doing instead of asking. The council chamber continued its debate, voices rising, tempers flaring. Kavros stood silent, staring at the screens. 43 human vessels, 3 stations, and all built while he had been perfecting the process of review. He thought of Wright's words. We interpreted your silence as tacit acceptance. Had it been silence or had it been something worse? Paralysis. The session ended without resolution. They would reconvene tomorrow. More data needed, more analysis required, more careful deliberation. Always more deliberation. Kavros returned to his office alone. The walls held records of his achievements, commendations, certificates, proof of a life spent in service of order. He sat at his desk, pulled up the old file, the Kelrath collapse. Grainy footage from 52 years ago. He watched it one more time. Bodies, devastation, the price of haste. But what was the price of caution? The screens in front of him showed Sector 447, human operations, clean, efficient, safe, no disasters, no catastrophes, just results. Kavros sat in the darkness of his office. 62 years old, 35 years of service, a lifetime of being right. And for the first time in decades, he wondered, was I wrong? The question hung in the silence, unanswered. Kavros did not sleep that night, could not sleep. Instead, he sat in his private study surrounded by screens, each one displaying data from Sector 447, installation schematics, construction timelines, safety protocols, resource extraction rates. The numbers told a story. He just did not like what they were saying. 3 months of human operations, 43 vessels, 3 orbital stations, 12 asteroid mining platforms, all established without a single incident. No accidents, no safety violations, no environmental damage. Their record was cleaner than most Dominion operations. How Kavros pulled up another report. This one from the structural analysis team. The human stations use modular construction, prefabricated components assembled in orbit, everything designed for rapid deployment. 4 months from concept to completion. A Dominion equivalent would take 3 years. 18 months for approval, 18 months for construction. The humans had built permanent infrastructure in the time it took the Dominion to schedule committee meetings. He scrolled through personnel rotation schedules, 6-month deployments. Workers cycled in and out. No permanent habitation. Everything temporary but professional. Safety drills conducted weekly. Redundant systems on every critical component. Emergency protocols that exceeded Dominion standards. They were not reckless. They were competent. That realization sat heavy in his chest. Dawn broke over the Capitol. Pale light filtering through the tall windows of his study. Kavros had not moved in 7 hours. Kira found him there when she arrived for the morning briefing. "Hi, Director," she said softly. "You should rest." "I will rest when I understand," Kavros replied, his voice hoarse from disuse. He gestured at the screens. "Look at this, Kira. Their safety record, their efficiency, their protocols. Where is the flaw? Where is the weakness that justifies our opposition?" Kira studied the data, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps there is no flaw, Director. There must be. They bypassed every safeguard. Every review process designed to prevent disaster. There must be consequences." And if there are not, the question hung between them. Kavros turned back to his screens, unable to answer. The communication request came at midday. Direct channel from Admiral Helena Morgrave herself, requesting face-to-face dialogue with High Director Thane. The Council advised against it. Too soon. Not enough preparation. They needed more time to formulate strategy. But Kavros was tired of time. Tired of preparation. He accepted. The holographic projection materialized in the center of the council chamber. Not a recording, live feed, real-time communication across light years of space. Admiral Helena Morgrave appeared before him. 59 years old, perhaps, gray hair pulled back in military precision, eyes that had seen decades of command. She stood in what appeared to be the bridge of her flagship. Behind her, crew members worked at their stations. Professional, organized, efficient. She inclined her head, a gesture of respect. High Director Thane, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Kavros remained standing, the chamber around him silent. Every council member watching. Admiral Morgrave, your forces are operating in Dominion-monitored space without authorization. I trust you understand the severity of this situation. I understand that you believe authorization was required, Morgrave replied, her voice calm, measured. I respectfully disagree. Sector 447 falls under Dominion oversight. Monitoring, yes. Oversight, no. Morgrave pulled up her own display. Legal documents materialized beside her. Article 7 of the Galactic Commerce Protocols is quite clear. Unclaimed space may be utilized by any species with the capability to do so. Monitoring does not constitute a claim. We have maintained presence in that sector for 2 centuries. Passive presence. Observation. You have built nothing, extracted nothing, established no permanent infrastructure. By definition, the space remains unclaimed. Kavros felt his jaw tighten. The Dominion system exists to prevent conflicts, to ensure orderly development, to protect against disasters. Morgrave's expression shifted slightly. I am familiar with the Kelrath collapse director. 4 million dead, a tragedy born of corporate negligence and insufficient oversight. She leaned forward. You were 10 years old when it happened. I have read your file. I know it shaped your entire career. Your dedication to preventing another such catastrophe is admirable. Then you understand why proper review processes are necessary. I understand why you believe they are necessary, Morgrave corrected gently. But Director, the Kelrath collapse happened 52 years ago. One incident, horrific certainly, but one. She pulled up data of her own. In those same 52 years, how many innovations did your review system delay? How many medical treatments remained in approval queues while people died of treatable conditions? How many technological advances sat in committee while other species moved forward? Caution prevents catastrophe. Excessive caution prevents progress. The words struck like a hammer. Kavros felt heat rise in his chest. This human admiral lecturing him about governance, about systems refined over centuries, about protocols built on hard lessons. You speak of progress, he said, his voice tight. I speak of lives. Every delay, every review, every committee exists because history taught us the price of haste. And what is the price of paralysis? Morgrave asked. The question hung in the air. Director Thane, humanity is 300 years into our space age. You have been exploring the galaxy for 4,000 years. We are children by your standards. New, inexperienced, naive perhaps. She straightened. But we cannot afford your timeline. We cannot wait 12 to 15 years for approval to use empty space. Our population is growing. Our need for resources is urgent. Your patience is a luxury we do not have. So you simply ignore established channels. We work around outdated systems, Morgrave corrected. There is a difference. You violate protocol. We operate within legal frameworks. Article 7 is clear. We have broken no laws. You have broken trust. The words came out harder than Kavros intended. Morgrave was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Director, we sent notifications 6 months ago. 47 of them, to every monitoring power. We were not trying to hide. We informed you of our intentions. You knew we would interpret them as requests. We hoped you would interpret them as what they were. Notifications, courtesy communications. We told you what we planned to do. You chose to process them through approval mechanisms we never agreed to participate in. Because that is how civilization functions. Through mutual respect for established systems. No, Director. That is how your civilization functions. You built an empire on making others wait, on controlling the pace of change through elaborate procedures, on maintaining order through bureaucratic inertia. Morgrave's expression hardened slightly. We simply chose not to participate. The chamber erupted, counselors shouting, demanding, protesting. Kavros raised a hand. Silence returned slowly. You are asking us to abandon everything we built, he said quietly. I am asking you to evolve it, Morgrave replied. Keep the wisdom, the safety protocols, the genuine safeguards, but lose the paralysis, the endless reviews, the committees that exist only to create more committees. She pulled up a comparison chart. Human approval timeline, 3 weeks from notification to operation. Dominion approval timeline, 12 to 18 months from request to authorization. One of these systems builds, the other deliberates, which serves the galaxy better. Kavros stared at the chart. 52 years of careful, methodical expansion. 0 catastrophes under his watch. But also 0 bold achievements. 0 breakthrough discoveries. 0 risks taken that might have saved lives through faster medical approvals. Advanced technologies. New treatments. How many people had died waiting for committee review? The thought made him sick. This conversation is over, Kavros said, his voice hollow. You have stated your position. The council will deliberate. Of course, Director, deliberation is what you do best. The transmission ended. Kavros stood in silence. Around him, the council erupted again. But he heard none of it. He was thinking of a 10-year-old boy, watching vids, bodies being pulled from wreckage. His father's voice. This is why we have rules. But what if the rules became the problem? Kira requested a private audience that evening. Kavros granted it. Weary, drained, she entered his office carrying a data tablet, her expression nervous but determined. Director, I have compiled the analysis you requested. Human construction timelines versus Dominion equivalents. She projected the data into the air. Station construction, human 4 months, Dominion 36 months. Mining platform deployment, human 6 weeks, Dominion 18 months. Resource extraction operations, human operational in 3 weeks. Dominion pending environmental review estimated timeline 14 months. Every comparison told the same story. The humans built while the Dominion deliberated. We do it right, Kavros said, his voice defensive. Proper review ensures safety. Does it, Director? Kira pulled up another set of data. I took the liberty of comparing safety records. Human operations across all 47 sectors over the past 3 months. 12 fatalities, all from equipment malfunction or operator error. Investigated, corrected, protocols updated within days. She switched to Dominion data. Dominion equivalent operations over the same period. 7 fatalities, same causes, investigations ongoing, protocol reviews scheduled for next quarter, updates pending, committee approval. The numbers were devastating. The humans lose more people because they operate more extensively, Kira continued, but they respond faster, adapt quicker. Their system learns from failure in days. Ours takes months. Because we are thorough. Because we are afraid. The words struck like a physical blow. Kavros turned to face her. This young analyst he had mentored for 5 years, who had learned his methods, his philosophy, his careful approach, now challenging everything. Afraid of what? He asked. Of being wrong. Of taking responsibility for decisions instead of hiding behind committee consensus. Kira met his eyes, unflinching. Director, I submitted a research station proposal 5 years ago. I was 23 years old, fresh from the academy. Brilliant idea, at least my professors thought so. Revolutionary approach to dark matter detection. She pulled up the file. Request number 7823-beta. Status preliminary review. Estimated decision timeline, 6 to 8 more months. 5 years, Kira said, her voice tight. I have spent 5 years waiting for permission to contribute. I will be 33 before I receive an answer. By then, my research will be obsolete. Someone else will have made the discovery. My career will have stagnated while I waited for the 7th subcommittee to review the 14th appendix. Kavros felt something crack inside his chest. The system protects you, he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. The system is burying me, Kira replied, just like it is burying every young scientist, every innovator, every person with an idea that does not fit neatly into established categories. She stepped closer. Director, you built this system to prevent catastrophe. I understand that. I respect it. But you built it so well that it now prevents everything. Not just disasters, progress, innovation, the future itself. You are being dramatic. Am I? Look at the humans. 300 years in space and they are operating in 47 sectors. We have been in space 4,000 years and we are still debating whether to approve a mining operation that poses zero environmental risk. Kira pulled up one final image. Sector 447. Human operations. Thriving. Active. Building. They are not smarter than us, Director. They are not more capable. They are just willing to act, to take responsibility, to say yes or no instead of pending review. She looked at him with something like pity. You are not a bad person, Director Thane. You are not corrupt or negligent or cruel. You are just trapped in a system of your own making. A system that worked once, that served a purpose. But that purpose is finished, and you cannot let it go. The silence stretched between them. Kavros had no answer, because she was right, and they both knew it. The full council convened the next morning. Every seat filled, every faction represented. The chamber hummed with tension. Councillor Drex stood first, his voice booming. We face three options: military response, legal challenge, or diplomatic capitulation. I say we choose strength, assemble a fleet, force the humans to withdraw, show the galaxy that the Dominion will not be bullied by upstart species who ignore our authority. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Kavros gestured to Commander Dane. The military officer stepped forward, his expression grim. Council, I have conducted a thorough assessment of comparative military capabilities. If conflict occurs, the Dominion would face significant challenges. He pulled up tactical data. The humans have 8 confirmed capital-class warships in the contested sectors. Our intelligence suggests this represents approximately 20% of their total military capability. They have been constructing vessels in system. 3 operational shipyards identified. Production rate exceeds our estimates by a factor of 4. Dane met Drex's eyes. In direct confrontation, we would suffer catastrophic losses. The humans possess technological advantages in several key areas: stealth capabilities, electronic warfare, rapid deployment. A military response is inadvisable. The chamber fell silent. Drex's certainty crumbled. Another counselor spoke up. The legal scholar Vex. Then we pursue legal action. Take this to the galactic arbitration courts. Argue that monitoring presence establishes administrative rights. Force a ruling that clarifies the law. Kavros nodded to his legal team. The chief scholar stepped forward. We have consulted with the finest legal minds in the Dominion. The consensus is troubling. Best case scenario, preliminary hearing in 12 to 18 months. Final ruling in 2 to 4 years. He pulled up precedent cases. Our legal standing is questionable. The humans are correct in their interpretation of Article 7. Monitoring does not equal ownership. The courts could rule either way, and even a favorable verdict would be difficult to enforce. The humans have established operational facts on the ground. Removal would require force, which brings us back to the military option. Another silence, longer this time, heavier. Kavros watched his counsel grapple with reality. The military option would end in defeat. The legal option would take years and might fail anyway, which left only the third option: acceptance. Director Thane, a younger counselor, spoke up. What is your recommendation? Kavros stood slowly. 62 years old, 35 years of service, a lifetime of being certain. I recommend, he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside, that we face the truth. The humans have outmaneuvered us, not through deception, not through violation of law, but through initiative we were too cautious to take ourselves. He pulled up the map. 47 sectors, all with human operations. While we debated paperwork, they built infrastructure. While we refined processes, they extracted resources. While we scheduled committee meetings, they established operational control. He turned to face the council. They did not ask for permission because they understood something we forgot. That permission is not granted by those who watch. It is earned by those who act. This is surrender, Drex spat. This is adaptation, Kavros corrected. Before he could continue, alarms screamed across the chamber. Emergency alerts. Multiple sources. Kira rushed to the display, her fingers flying across the console. Director, we are receiving urgent communications from regional monitoring stations. She pulled up the data. Kavros felt the floor shift beneath him. The Morvani Confederacy has filed 23 notifications of intent for immediate resource operations. The Krell hegemony has filed 17. The Thalesian Compact. She looked up, disbelief in her eyes. 31 notifications, all filed within the last 6 hours. The map lit up. Across the galaxy, other species had been watching, learning, seeing the humans succeed. Now they were following the same model: notifications instead of requests, initiative instead of permission. The cascade had begun. They are copying the humans, someone whispered. They are abandoning our system, Drek said, his voice hollow. Kavros stared at the spreading lights. Each one a species choosing to act rather than wait. Each one a nail in the coffin of the old order. We are not debating one species anymore, he said quietly. We are watching the end of an era. My era. He turned to face the council. The question is not whether we can stop this. We cannot. The question is whether we evolve with it or become irrelevant to it. You would abandon everything we built, Drex demanded. I would save what matters from what does not, Kavros replied. 35 years I have served this council. 35 years I have refined these processes. I built them to prevent catastrophe, to ensure that haste never again killed millions. He paused. But I built them so thoroughly that they prevent everything, not just disaster, progress, innovation, the future. He met Drex's eyes. The humans did not destroy our system. They revealed that it had already destroyed itself. We became so afraid of making mistakes that we stopped making decisions. So we just accept their presence, legitimize their violation. We adapt our approach, Kavros said. We maintain oversight, real oversight, not bureaucratic delay disguised as review. We monitor safety, we enforce genuine standards. But we stop pretending that making people wait 18 months serves any purpose beyond making ourselves feel important. The council erupted in argument, voices overlapping, some agreeing, some outraged, most simply confused. Kavros let them debate. He had said his piece, made his choice. Finally, the vote was called. Accept human operations and negotiate new oversight frameworks, or maintain current position and face isolation as other species followed the human model. Hands rose slowly. Kavros watched the count. 38 in favor, 20 opposed, 9 abstentions. Not overwhelming, but enough. Then the clerk asked for his vote. Kavros looked at his hands. These hands that had signed thousands of approvals, delayed countless projects, built an empire of careful deliberation. These hands that had prevented catastrophe by preventing action. High Director Thane, the clerk prompted. Your vote. Kavros thought of Kelrath, of his father, of the lesson that had defined his life. Then he thought of Kira. 5 years waiting, career stagnating, brilliant mind trapped in bureaucratic amber. He thought of the humans, building, acting, taking responsibility for their choices instead of hiding behind committee consensus. He thought of 47 sectors, all thriving under human management, 0 catastrophes, just results. I abstain, Kavros said. The chamber gasped. In 35 years, he had never abstained, never once. Every decision had been yes or no, black or white, certain. Director, the clerk asked, you wish to abstain? I do, Kavros replied, because for the first time in decades he was not certain. Not certain he was right. Not certain the old ways served the galaxy anymore. Not certain that his life's work had been anything more than fear dressed up as wisdom. The motion passes, the clerk announced. The session ended. Councilors filed out, some angry, some relieved, most simply exhausted. Kavros remained seated, alone in the chamber, staring at his hands. 35 years of certainty, gone. The transmission arrived 3 days after the vote, a personal invitation from Admiral Helena Morgrave. No formality, no diplomatic protocol, just a simple request. Director Thane, come see what we have built. See it with your own eyes, then judge. The council advised against it. Too risky, too soon. They needed more time to establish proper security protocols for such a visit. Kavros overrode them all. He had spent 35 years following protocols, waiting for proper procedures, ensuring every detail was perfect before taking action. Perhaps it was time to simply act. The transport departed at dawn, a small diplomatic vessel, minimal crew. Kavros insisted on traveling alone against every security recommendation. He needed to see this without the buffer of advisors, without the shield of procedure. Just him and the truth. The journey to Sector 447 took 18 hours. Kavros spent most of it staring out the viewport, watching the stars, thinking about the years. 52 since Kelroth, 35 in service, 10 since his wife died. All that time spent building walls, creating systems, preventing catastrophe through careful control. And now those walls were crumbling, not from attack, from irrelevance. The human station appeared on sensors as they approached, larger than the reports suggested, more complete, lights glowing across its surface like a small city suspended in the void. Captain Lyra Wright's vessel met them at the outer marker, the Pathfinder, sleek, modern, built for speed rather than ceremony. Director Thane, Wright's voice came through the comm. "Welcome to Sector 447. The Admiral is waiting for you at Research Station Kepler. I will escort you in." No threats, no weapons lock, just courtesy, as if his arrival were expected. Natural. Welcome. They docked at the station. The airlock cycled. Kavros stepped through into a corridor that hummed with activity. Workers moved past him. Human, alien, species he recognized and some he did not. All wearing the same utilitarian uniforms. All moving with purpose. No one stopped to stare. No one treated his presence as unusual. They simply worked. Wright met him at the junction, younger than her voice suggested, perhaps 34, face lined with the kind of weariness that came from responsibility, not age. "Director," she said, extending a hand in the human gesture of greeting. Kavros took it. The grip was firm, confident. "Captain Wright, thank you for the escort. Thank you for coming. The Admiral wanted to give you the full tour personally, but an emergency required her attention at the shipyard. She asked me to show you around until she is free." An emergency. Equipment malfunction in Base 7. Fusion containment fluctuation. Already resolved, but she wanted to review the safety protocols personally. Already resolved. Kavros thought of Dominion procedures. An equipment malfunction would trigger a 6-week investigation. Committee reviews. Impact assessments. The humans simply fixed it and moved on. Wright led him through the station. Kavros observed everything: storage bays, research labs, living quarters, medical facilities, all modular, all efficient, all designed for rapid assembly and reconfiguration. "This station has been operational for 3 months, Wright explained as they walked. "We built it in 6 weeks using prefabricated components. Each section can be replaced or upgraded without shutting down adjacent systems." "What about safety inspections?" Kavros asked. "Continuous. Every system monitored in real time. Any anomaly triggers immediate review. We do not wait for scheduled inspections. We inspect constantly." They entered a research lab, scientists working at stations, experiments running, data streaming across displays. "This is our xenobiology section," Wright said. "Studying microbial life in the magnetar's radiation belt. Could have applications for radiation shielding technology." Kavros watched a young researcher barely 25 making adjustments to a complex apparatus. No supervisor hovering. No committee oversight, just trust and competence. "What if she makes a mistake?" Kavros asked. Wright looked at him, really looked, not with hostility, with something like understanding. "Then she fixes it, or we help her fix it. That is how people learn, Director, through doing, through occasional failure, through taking responsibility for their choices. And if the mistake is catastrophic, then we prevent catastrophe through competence, not through preventing action." Wright gestured to the safety systems visible throughout the lab. "Every station has redundant containment. Every experiment has automatic shutdown protocols. Every researcher completes intensive training. We trust our people because we prepare them properly, not because we make them wait years for permission." They continued the tour. Engineering bays, construction facilities, power generation. Everything hummed with purposeful activity. Kavros felt something shifting inside him, a recognition he did not want to acknowledge. This worked, not in theory, not on paper, but in practice, in reality. The humans had built a functioning operation in 3 months that matched or exceeded Dominion standards in every measurable way, without committees, without endless review, without his carefully constructed protocols. They emerged onto an observation deck overlooking the sector. Through the transparent hull, Kavros could see the full scope of human operations. Mining platforms extracting resources from asteroids, transport ships moving supplies, construction vessels assembling new modules, other stations visible in the distance, a complete industrial ecosystem. built while he had been debating paperwork. Director Thane, the voice came from behind him. Kavros turned. Admiral Helena Morgrave stood in the doorway, older than her hologram suggested, lines around her eyes, gray hair pulled back, but standing straight, confident, a lifetime of command in her posture. Admiral, Kavros said, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for accepting. I know this was not an easy decision. Morgrave dismissed Wright with a nod. The captain departed, leaving them alone on the observation deck. Two aging leaders, two different philosophies. Face to face. What do you think? Morgrave asked, gesturing to the view. Kavros was silent for a long moment. I think you have built something remarkable, he said finally. I also think it represents everything I spent my career opposing. Because it bypasses your systems. Because it operates without safeguards. Without your safeguards, Morgrave corrected gently. We have plenty of our own. They are just different. She moved to stand beside him at the viewport. Director, I studied your file before we came here. I know about the Kelrath collapse. I know you were 10 years old. I know it shaped everything you became. It taught me that haste kills. It taught you to fear action. The words were soft, but they struck deep. Kavros felt his jaw tighten. 4 million people died because corporations rushed expansion. I built my career on ensuring that never happens again. And you succeeded, Morgrave said. Under your oversight, the Dominion has had 0 catastrophes comparable to Kelrath. 0. That is remarkable. Then why do you oppose my methods? I do not oppose them, Director. I just recognize their expiration date. Morgrave pulled up a data display. Historical analysis. After Kelrath, your approach was exactly right. The galaxy needed time to recover, to establish proper frameworks. But that purpose is finished. The lessons are learned. Your system now prevents progress without preventing genuine risk. She gestured out the viewport. 3 months, 47 sectors, thousands of workers, millions of tons of material extracted and processed. And yes, we have had 12 fatalities. She pulled up another display. A memorial wall, 12 names engraved in metal, 12 faces looking out from the screen. These were workers who died in accidents across our operations. Equipment failures, operator errors. Kavros read the names, each one a life, a person, a tragedy. You see, he said, the cost of haste. The cost of progress, Morgrave replied. Director, I mourn every one of these losses. But I do not pretend that preventing action prevents death. Your system had 0 fatalities in these sectors because the Dominion had 0 presence. Safety through absence is not safety. It is just absence. Better no lives lost than 12. Is it how many lives were not saved because medical treatments waited years in your approval queues? Morgrave's voice softened. You built a system that prevents visible catastrophe. But invisible catastrophe happens every day in the opportunities lost. Kavros wanted to argue, wanted to defend his life's work, but the words would not come, because she was right. They stood in silence, watching the sector through the viewport, human operations continuing, building, creating, acting. Director, Morgrave said finally, I brought you here to offer something. She pulled up a document, treaty framework, detailed, comprehensive. I propose a partnership, Human Dominion Joint Oversight. We share all survey data, all research findings. We coordinate operations. We establish safety standards together. She scrolled through the terms. In exchange, the Dominion formally recognizes our right to operate in unclaimed space. You provide monitoring and inspection services. We accept oversight, real oversight, not bureaucratic delay, but genuine safety review. And if we say no, then we continue operating anyway. This is not a negotiation about whether we have the right to be here. Article 7 is clear. This is an offer to include you in the process, to combine your wisdom with our initiative. Morgrave turned to face him fully. Director Thane, you built your career on preventing another Kelrath. I am offering you the chance to do that without preventing everything else. Transform your oversight from obstruction to partnership. You are asking me to dismantle my life's work. I am asking you to evolve it, to keep what is valuable and release what is obsolete. She paused. You are 62 years old. You have served with distinction for 3.5 decades. You could spend your remaining years defending a dying system. Morgrave's expression softened. Or you could spend them building something new. Something that honors the lessons without being paralyzed by them. Something that combines caution with courage. Cavros stared at the treaty framework. Everything in him wanted to reject it, to defend his protocols, to insist that his way was right. But he thought of Kira, 5 years waiting. He thought of the humans, 3 months building. He thought of 12 names on a memorial wall, lives lost in service of progress. He thought of millions more lives, not lost, not saved, just suspended in bureaucratic amber. "I need time to consider," he said. "Of course. Take all the time you need, Director." Morgrave smiled slightly. "But perhaps not 18 months. Cavros returned to the capital 3 days later. The council convened immediately, demanding reports, assessments, analysis. He gave them none of it. Instead, he requested an emergency session. Full council, all representatives present. The chamber filled, curious, tense, uncertain. Cavros stood at the center. No notes, no prepared remarks, just truth. "I have spent 3 days in Sector 447, he began. "I have toured human installations, reviewed their safety protocols, observed their operations firsthand." He pulled up the data. "What I found surprised me, not because it was reckless or negligent, but because it was professional, efficient, safe." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The humans operate with safety standards that meet or exceed our own. Their response protocols are faster. Their adaptation to failure is immediate." He paused. "They have accomplished in 3 months what would have taken us 3 years. Not because they are smarter, but because they are willing to act, to take responsibility, to trust competence over process." Councillor Drex stood. "Director, are you suggesting we abandon our oversight entirely?" "No, I'm suggesting we transform it." Cavros pulled up Morgrave's treaty framework. "Admiral Morgrave has offered a partnership, joint oversight of contested sectors, shared data, coordinated operations, real safety review without bureaucratic delay." He scrolled through the terms. "She is offering us the chance to maintain our values without maintaining our paralysis." "This is surrender," Drex said. "This is evolution," Cavros replied. He turned to face the full council. 52 years ago, 4 million people died. I dedicated my life to ensuring it never happened again." His voice grew stronger. "I succeeded. Under our system, we have had 0 comparable disasters, but we have also had 0 comparable achievements. We built a system so focused on preventing failure that we forgot how to pursue success." He gestured to the treaty. "I propose radical reform. We accept this partnership. We cut our approval timelines from 18 months to 6 weeks. We adopt a notification plus oversight model. Species can begin operations if they accept real-time monitoring and safety inspections." The chamber erupted, objections, questions, protests. Cavros let them speak. Then he raised a hand. Silence returned slowly. "I know what I am asking. I know it means abandoning systems I spent decades building." He met their eyes. "But I have seen the alternative. I have watched the galaxy move forward without us, while we deliberate endlessly about whether to let them." "We maintain order," Drex insisted. "We maintain the illusion of control," Cavros corrected. "Authority comes from providing value, from genuine oversight that makes operations safer, not from bureaucratic delays that serve no purpose except making us feel important." He pulled up the map. Dozens of species now following the human model. The galaxy has already decided. We can evolve with it and maintain relevance, or we can cling to outdated procedures and become obsolete. The vote was called, 34 in favor, 28 opposed, 5 abstentions, narrower than before. But enough. Then Councillor Drex stood, his face hard, resolved. "I cannot serve under this framework," he said. "It betrays everything the Dominion represents." He removed his ceremonial robe. "I resign." 14 other councillors stood with him. Old guard, veterans, all removing their robes, all walking out. The chamber watched in stunned silence as a third of the council departed. Cavros felt the weight of it. These were colleagues, some were friends. They were not wrong to leave. They were simply unable to change. "The council recognizes the resignations," Cavros said quietly. He looked at those who remained. "We have work to do." 6 months passed. The reforms took hold, slowly, painfully, but they took hold. Approval timelines shrank. 6 weeks became standard. The notification plus oversight model was implemented. Species could begin operations immediately if they accepted real-time monitoring. Failures happened. Not many, but some. 2 operations shut down for safety violations. 3 emergency interventions when accidents occurred. But the system worked, not perfectly, but functionally. The galaxy was changing, and the Dominion was changing with it. The launch ceremony for the DS-5 initiative drew crowds. First Dominion vessel built under the new protocols. Modular design, rapid construction, 4 months from concept to completion, named by council vote. Initiative. The word that had once seemed threatening now represented hope. Cavros stood in the observation gallery. No longer director, now consultant to the Human Dominion Joint Oversight Commission. Kira Venn, beside him. Director of Dark Matter Research now. Her 5-year proposal approved in 3 weeks. Other young faces surrounded them. The generation that would inherit this new galaxy. The vessel hung in space before them. Sleek, modern, ready. Do you miss it? Kira asked quietly. The certainty. Cavros watched the ship's engines begin their pre-flight sequence. I miss knowing I was right, he said honestly, but I do not miss being trapped by it. Unable to change, unable to grow. The initiative's thrusters fired, pulling away from the construction yards, beginning its journey. Admiral Helena Morgrave approached from the crowd. Gray hair, knowing smile. She had come in person for the ceremony. Ready to start work tomorrow, Cavros. He watched the ship accelerate, joined by human vessels, Morvani ships, Krell transports, all operating together, all taking initiative, all building the future. The galaxy was different now, louder, messier, less orderly, but alive, truly alive. For the first time in 52 years since a child watched bodies pulled from wreckage and swore to prevent catastrophe through caution, Cavros Thane felt at peace, not because he had been proven right, but because he had learned to be wrong with grace, to change with dignity, to find new purpose in a galaxy that no longer needed his old certainties. He thought of his father's voice. This is why we have rules. And he thought of his own answer finally found after all these years. Rules serve their time. Then they must evolve or die. The initiative disappeared into the stars. Other ships following, a fleet of initiative, a galaxy learning to act. I've waited long enough, Cavros said. Morgrave smiled. Then let's build something worth the wait. They stood together, watching the future unfold. The age of waiting was over. The age of doing had begun. And Cavros Thane, architect of obsolescence, student of change, builder of tomorrow, was finally ready, not to prevent catastrophe, but to enable triumph, not through walls that kept everything out, but through wisdom that let the right things in. The ceremony ended. The crowds dispersed. Cavros remained, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, species were building, creating, taking initiative. And he was part of it now, not as the guardian who said no, but as the guide who helped them say yes safely. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything he had never known he needed to become. The screens in the observation gallery began to dim. Time to leave. Time to begin the real work. Kira touched his arm gently. Ready, director? Not director anymore, he said. Just Cavros. Ready, Cavros. He took one last look at the stars, at the ships, at the future being written by those brave enough to act, and smiled. Yes, he said, I'm ready. They walked out together, leaving the past behind, moving toward what came next. The age of waiting was over, and Cavros Thane had finally learned the greatest lesson of all. That true wisdom was not preventing change, but embracing it, not with fear, but with hope.